Do. Pow, 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 pow. All right, are we rolling? Live from the survival pod out here in the wasteland. This is Freedom Phil, and what's the topic today? If the environmental movement was really seriously, they'd focus more on earth shelters and actual real green technology that would reduce our energy usage. That would give us the excess energy to have an electric future. Yeah, I just want to talk about kind of the farce of it, some of the solutions and whatnot. So, yeah, Freedom Phil, like to subscribe. Let's get into it. Hey, turn up the video speed. And why do I always say that? Because you can watch videos faster. Why wouldn't you? You should be watching this if I choose to upload at 1.75. And as always, I just got to point this out. I am not a channel for children. I don't mind if kids watch, to be honest. But don't blame me if your kid regurgitates something I say and you're pissed off about it because you decided to, wholesale throw away your parental responsibility and just say, hey, kids, here's a screen. Quit being a shitty parent, know what your kids are watching. And as always, a lot of my followers, robots and retards, a small amount of you are actually thinking individuals, and I appreciate a good conversation. But if you're some retarded spurg coming into my chat and acting like a jackass, I will definitely farm you for content. And I have no problem with the ban hammer, but I will generally, just because it's funnier watching them get pissed off, you'll just put them in timeout. You go in timeout. And they're like, let's get into it. I watched this thing where they talk about, the increasing energy prices in some of these, Western civilized countries. And they were talking, I was watching news from Australia. And this is same news you'll see in America or Europe or anywhere, first world. And they're like, the increasing cost of electricity. And it's like, okay, I get that this won't work everywhere. I'm not some, John Lennon, imagine dreaming fuck, okay? I'm rational. But there's a lot of places in America, like out here in the wasteland, yes, you could build underground earth shelter dome houses. There's a lot of places. I look at some of the places with southern exposures, on the gentle slope, and I'm like, yeah, you could totally build there. You'd have to do some soil surveys and whatnot, but they're like, well, why underground? Okay, so it costs this much to heat your above ground house, and it costs this much to cool it. Like one of the advantages of my house up north in the Rocky Mountain State is that it's got like walls that are damn near 2 feet thick or like 22 inches thick. And why? Because it's got like metal siding, then stone block, a little bit of an air gap, so a dead air zone, and then brick, 2 layers of brick. And then basically it's got 2x4 stud now with foam insulation for the, all the new wiring and all that crap. And so what am I getting at with that? My house is super thick, and that's part of the reason it holds heat and cools so well. So during the summer, for instance, you just open the windows at night. New windows, good windows, by the way. And the bug screens there keep the bugs out. And the cool air comes in, the bugs stay out. And then you close it in the morning. And then the house stays anywhere from 50 to 60 degrees. When outside it's 90 degrees or higher, like 80 to 100 degrees. Now that same effect when it comes to if I had a wood stove in there. If I was really going to live there, I would build a thermal mass heater with the long bench. I'd have to reinforce the in the underworld, put up more concrete below, and then build a retaining wall, something like that. But if I was going to do that, it's what I do. And I know that house is a good design, but a superior design to that house would be an earth shelter. Because an earth shelter, effectively, you're underground, and once you go anywhere from like 7 feet to 10 feet, somewhere in there, you're holding a steady 50, 60 degrees. And I've been watching these videos off and on. I've known about this technology for years. But they show these Inuit villages that they used to build underground houses. You're talking up there in the Arctic before modern technology. There's no electricity. They were just, burning seal blubber or some shit or, whale fat. This is for thousands of years, these people lived, and they built villages like underground stone structures. And it's only in the modern age, in the last 100 years, where we basically forced everybody to live in this above ground design. Now, I'm not saying it'll work everywhere, but I'm saying like in the wastelands of America, where you only get like 6 inches of rain a year, and heating and cooling. I mean, if you take out that aspect of how much you spend energy-wise, heating and cooling your house, let's just say if instead of propane, it's like electricity. How much energy does your house truly need? Like, for instance, I use a chest freezer design, Bouge RV 30 liter, and it only takes 35 watts to be a freezer. Now, wild thought there. Why couldn't you do, like, if you had some sort of, I saw a guy that actually built one. It was like a little lift thing that was in his cooler. His cooler was that design. You lift up the lid and then you push a button and it lifts up all the stuff and all the trays come out. So the cold stays in there. Works far better. Why aren't we building these designs? If they really, we need to save the environment, because it's not about saving the environment. It's not. It's about zero growth. I'll see these videos and they'll talk about, and you see, because we built these dams, these hydroelectric dams, they're destroying the salmon. And these robot videos, because AI's gotten, I shouldn't say AI, it's just computer generated shit. I really think the word AI is way overused, but you have these like videos, and they're basically propaganda videos for tear out the dams or do this or do that. We're destroying the environment. And you're like, okay, if you guys really care about the environment, why aren't you building earth shelters? Why aren't you building, instead of a furnace, a natural gas generator that not only produces electricity? Yes, it had to be a good design. It's made to last longer, has more oil capacity, oil filter, and that. And yes, you would occasionally, but could you use a thermal mass heater design with the exhaust from a heat exchange could you even maybe pump the coolant into something to heat a thermal mass and water heater from the same natural gas generator instead of just burning it in the furnace? You see, all these different things I've described, these things could be done today. And yet, if they really gave a shit about the environment, and they would do these things. But they don't. They don't really care. Everybody wants to live in the 1980s, is the best way I can describe it. That turn dial generation. And now the turn dial is on your cell phone. Oh, our furnace is this much more efficient. Yeah, but it's still, your furnace can be more efficient. Your AC can be more efficient. But your house design is fucking horrible. I mean, I'll give you an example. Let's say you got a 3-level house. You got the basement, which stays a steady temperature pretty much year round, needs a little heating, needs a little cooling. Well, actually needs no cooling, to be honest. Then you got the main level, which good half the year is kind of nice. And then you got the upper floor, which is usually too fucking hot. And the most valuable floor is the second floor. The basement is considered a waste, even though it's the basement. That during the summer, you're going to want to be hanging out in the basement. You're like, yeah, it's nice down here. It's fucking just the perfect temperature. It's not too hot, not too cold. And that design, the way we design houses is designed to fail your system. You can, it's a 2x4 or 2x6 design with, some Wells and Corning. In my case, I used foam, and mind you, my house has walls that are 22 inches thick on the 2/3 of the house. It was a railroad house, and basically, it's crazy when I look at it. It's fucking nuts when I look at the situation, and I think to myself, I'm like, I'm going to hear some environmentalists talk about saving the world. And then when I tell them, here's another one for you. You really want to save the world? Have you ever thought of retirement by 30? I know I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. If you retire younger because you invested when you're young, and let's make some divorce laws that protect, I don't care if you're male or female, you should be able to walk away with your assets. I think it's ridiculous how someone who put in, let's be honest, very little effort can walk away with more than half of your fucking effort. Shit that you had before you even got married, you get fucked out of. Nah, screw that shit. But if you go out and put the effort when you're in your 20s, live as cheap as possible, and invest when you're young. Buy a cheap piece of property, a cheap house or something or whatever. Because lots of good, nice little towns all over America, in the Midwest, Texas, all over the place. And effectively, you can be retired by 30 easily. Like shit, I used to drive truck. And assuming I find a decent trucking company, I'll go back to it this spring. Free apartment on wheels, no bills, no problems. You make it 80 to 100K a year. Now, that's not the only industry you could do that in. But if you make that type of money and you have almost no bills, like where you're van life or doing share room or maybe living with your parents, a tent in someone's backyard, an RV, whatever, you can save enough money to invest when you're young And effectively, you can live off the dividends. It's kind of the Norwegian style. Instead of taking the oil money and pissing it away on bullshit, they take the oil money and invest it worldwide. And their country's able to live off the dividends. And sometimes, people will complain, well, we could be living a bit better, but they're like, yeah, but what we're taking from our resources now will be sustainable forever. Now, if you do that as a personal individual and you get out of the rat race, you don't have to waste your time going to work. And how much fuel did you not waste? How much time did you work just to buy that next car, just so you could drive it into the ground going back to work? If you actually have a life that you're satisfied with when you're younger, and you're basically living off the dividends of your hard work from, 18 to 27, maybe a little younger, but you get my point. If you actually put that hard work in when you're younger, effectively you are the most environmental person. And here's another thing. You not having to work unless you feel like it means you can free up that job for the next person coming along, so they can do that tradesman job. And if the people need an extra plumber, electrician, or truck driver, seasonally you can work. Maybe because you're just fucking bored. You're like, well, I've played all the video games I want to do, and I've hiked all the things I wanted to hike. Fuck, let's do a job. And you're not married to the job. In that situation, you are actually the most green and responsible person because you have your act together. Now, instead of the capitalist system that you all hate so much, being, oh God, this is destroying the environment. It's the capitalist system that allows you not to have to work, therefore not having to go drive to work, not have to contribute to pollution. You don't have to make GDP for no fucking reason. It's your contribution to yourself and the system allows you to be the most green environmental person out there. And in that world, assuming we didn't have a bunch of, building codes and building laws saying, no, you can't build a pit house. You can't do this. The city council, so saith the HOA Karens or the city council bullshitters. There's so many things we could do. But I don't think the environmental movement is serious about anything they talk about. That's just my outlook. I don't. I mean, if they really cared, we'd be aiming for just a few types of plastic for most consumer goods. Like, let's just say 3 types of plastic that are recyclable. We would go out of our way to be getting rid of glass for the most part. Unless you can figure out some way to really recycle glass, it's pretty much just a waste product. We'd be going out of our way to, make metal recycling, like can recycling. I was fucking amazed when I was up north. They didn't recycle cardboard, but they did recycle metal cans. But if you went 50 miles south, to where the slightly bigger city was, they recycled cardboard. And the reason they said they didn't recycle cardboard is they said the price per pound for cardboard wasn't enough to make it worth putting it on a truck and driving it to wherever recycles it. One might say that's something you should be doing with trains, but then is it worth the train space? Is it worth enough to justify it? I never thought I'd hear that. And by the way, that's one of those things where I say, that's why you build a high-powered incinerator. Just cycle out the plastics that are recyclable. And the reality is, most plastic that's produced, we could gasify it and turn it into energy. We could. But, we're not going to do that. There are so many things we could do to fix this fucking country, this environment, this society. I mean, I was looking at these people talking about why Japanese people are so skinny and why Americans are so fat. And it's like, there's another thing right there. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Our entire system is basically, it's not made for the consumer. It's made for the consumer to consume so they have to go back to work. It's made for the business. Everything is made to be rotting and disposable. It's made to decay. And coming back to the environmental aspect of that, I was a garbage man for 4 years, and that's how I paid off my first house, by the way. And one thing I realized in that 4 years was everything's a trend that will end up in the trash. And to some degree, this new digital era is kind of beautiful because It's not like back in the day. Like, I remember one time I saw an 8-track player in the garbage when I drove a rear end loader. So you kind of intimate view of everybody's trash. And VHS tapes, then eventually DVDs, tape sets, whatever trend was the trend, it was in the trash eventually. And it just struck me that most of our consumption in our country wasn't for things that actually will, actually do you really good. It's just for temporary fashion choices, trends. Basically, consumption for the sake of consumption, for the sake of making profit. Which, by the way, I happen to love the capitalist system for its options, but I hate consumerism for its waste. But yeah, like I said at the very beginning, if we really gave a shit about the environmental movement, if it was real, we would be building earth shelter houses where they're applicable. We'd be making cities, for instance, that maybe where you wouldn't need a car. You'd have buildings where you could walk, like the first 2 levels would be, retail, and the next couple levels would be like library, maybe some office space, and the up above buildings would be, residential, where you could just have a bike or hitch the bus. There'd be no reason to have a car at all. I'm not a huge fan of the cities, but I do think those designs are kind of beautiful. They're the way they work. And then if you needed a car, you could just rent one, have some sort of car share program. We're not building that. We're just building a new, it's like what I would argue, just as a closing thought, is it's not environmental movement, it's greenwashing. And it's a zero growth movement. Where they, like anything that helps us country grow or make things more affordable is bad. We don't have enough water because we pissed it away into the ocean for a fucking little smelt. So they're like, well, let's desalinate. Now desalination is bad. What do you do with all the briny water? Then someone realized you could take the briny water and actually there's rare earth minerals that you can extract from that for making batteries. So we come up with a solution to a problem, and then people find another problem with the solution, and another problem, and another problem, and another problem. It's never about fixing the environment. It's about zero growth. That's just some thoughts. Take it easy.